If it's Wednesday, it's Hump Day Hangover. Greetings all, I'm Bart, the Success Educator, and today's topic is be more open each day. So, grab yourself a cup of coffee, or join me with a cocktail, and let's get started. This is Hump Day Hangover. Take a moment and consider this. Being open is not giving up your protective abilities. Now, some feel if they're open, they become more vulnerable. Vulnerability is not a byproduct of being open. But today, and especially with social media, not being open is often interpreted as being protective. And that's understandable considering the unstable and divisive climate that persists. Understandable then also why some people choose to be much more protective. Well, today's episode, as with all, comes from my best-selling book, My Moment to Succeed. Go out to my website, successeducator.com. You'll find a link out to Amazon where you can purchase it. I'll autograph it, personalize it for you. But let's get back to our topic of being open, more open each day. Now, one of my favorite lines from a play comes from William Shakespeare's Hamlet, and it's Polonius's parting advice to his son Laertes. And here's what he has to say. He says, "This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night, the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." What he's telling him is how to be a much more open person. Basically, your outside behavior must align with your core beliefs. To thy own self be true. Now, sharing your opinion is much easier than sharing your feelings. But here's what happens with opinions. Opinions can be controversial. Opinions also can be expressed without empathy. Opinions can also close off a conversation. And opinions can very well make you seem and appear narrow-minded. Feelings are much more complex. When you share from the heart, what you're really saying is, my gut is telling me whatever. An authentic response shows that you are realistic and you're trustworthy, whether a person agrees with you or not. Authenticity equals trustworthiness. So don't be afraid to show your authenticity. Speak from your gut. When you let those close to you know that something is bothering you, you are authentic. Now, everyone feels down and experiences tough times. Verbalizing your concerns increases your genuineness. Suppressing your feelings actually may lead to endangering your emotional health, as well as the health of your relationships. So you see, trust is really a two-way street. You trust them, they trust you, and it begins with trusting yourself. So what does it take to be considered trustworthy? Well, first of all, you must also trust those close to you. If you don't trust the people around you, how can you expect them to trust you? If you challenge the rules or always pushing the envelope, then you're not always putting your trust at risk. But here's the difference. When you push the envelope with the challenge of intent of discovery, then what you're actually doing is building a stronger base to stimulate your own growth. So push the envelope can be healthy if you're there for the purpose of discovery and the purpose of growing. But if you're challenging and pushing that envelope for the intent of being right, you're on the road to disaster. Now, those who are afraid to be open often pose their statements as a question. Now, you may be puzzled as to why I'm taking this avenue on this. When you pose something as a question, you can come across as offensive. Others may feel that they are being challenged. So my advice to you is to think before you speak. Modify your question into an inclusive statement. For example, instead of asking a question, rephrase it. Well, if it were me, or, well, I had a similar experience. Sharing ownership is paramount to being more open. Now, the most intriguing and often dangerous form of communication is nonverbal. I've done quite a bit of studying with nonverbal communication, and you can tell when a person is being authentic or when a person is being protective just by their body language. Do they roll their eyes? Look at their facial expressions. Do they have crossed arms all the time? Do they have a clenched fist when they speak? Are their legs crossed at all times? These are distinctive messages that they're trying to tell you something, that they have a shield around them. So when you're trying to become more trustworthy, engage more directly in eye-to-eye contact. Smile, nod, display an open gesture. When you do that, you project a more open identity, and soon you'll discover that people are attracted to you. This is what we call the law of attraction. The law of attraction is a very powerful force, and as we've learned, it's always in motion whether you recognize it or not. Also equally important is active listening. And we spent a whole week on this back on week 23. You learned how to become a more active listener. Active listening connects people with a deeper level. You're more in the moment. You're less likely to judge. You're less likely to label. You validate that importance of the conversation that you're having. So as you work on your eye contact, your body language, your active listening, if you still find out that you are internally judging and internally labeling, then someone is most likely doing the same to you. Putting people in boxes is reflective of a lack of trust on your part. It's a reflection of you not trusting you. And so consequently, others start trusting you less. So how do you get around this? Well, look for commonalities. Even simple things like maybe you prefer mayonnaise to mustard, or rye bread to wheat bread, or biscuits to cornbread. Whatever the commonalities may be, look for those commonalities. And when you begin to recognize the basic, simple commonalities, you begin to recognize the much more complex commonalities. And that's when you begin to develop tolerance. The less judgmental you become, the more accepting you are that everyone has similarities. Think about it. We all have a heart. We all have a lungs. We all have liver. We all have kidneys. We all have eyes and ears. We breathe. Our heart beats. Those are similarities. Look for things that you have in common. An open person is also a very grateful person. Be grateful for the hard times. Be grateful for the challenges. Recognize that through resistance, you gain strength. Think about the person who works out all the time at the gym, someone really trying to buff up, to build up strength. How do they do it? Through resistance and through continuous motion and continuous focus. Also important is to have an open heart. When you have an open heart, you begin to show compassion to those facing difficulties. And you realize within every difficulty or obstacle lies an opportunity, whether that opportunity is for you or for someone else that you're working with. Be grateful for what you're learning and grow from it. So you see, gratitude and compassion are keys to authentic happiness. Now, being open to others is going to take time. Like many things we've learned over these past 26 weeks, it takes time. It is a habit to form. You begin by admitting to yourself that you may make mistakes, and you admit to yourself that you may misread someone, and they may misread you. But getting past that and correcting that misread is what builds that strength builds that confidence and reaffirms the journey that you're on. Be patient with yourself. Embrace that you are you. Remember what Dr. Seuss taught us. There is no one youer than you. There is no single recipe for being open. Everyone is different. Everyone is unique. If you are comfortable with who you are and can honestly tell yourself that you have a rewarding interpersonal relationships and intrapersonal relationships, then you are most likely viewed as an open person. As my t-shirt reads, when you let love be the subject, verb, and action in your life, you begin to discover you're more open every day. Your work is not done. Continue to build on those strengths that you have. Let's talk a little bit about our journaling activities for the week. As with last week, as you should do every day, list the wins that you experienced today. Then ask yourself, do you see your outward behaviors align with your core beliefs and inward behaviors? And what are some examples you can share of that? How do you react to the phrase, "To thine own self be true"? How often do you listen to your gut? How often do you go with the flow? Do you trust your gut instincts? And when has your gut been right? And when has your gut been wrong? And do you judge and label? How can you improve when it comes to judging and labeling someone you meet for the first time? And then are you judged and labeled? Now today's Bardism comes from the legendary Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama taught us, look at situations from all angles and you'll become a more open person. Let's not forget that gratitude list. List 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. And I want to thank you once again for spending a few moments with me. Hit that subscribe button below and click on the bell next to it to get your notifications. Go out to my website, successeducator.com. Across the top, you'll see the links to my social media. Follow me there. And also, visit the Success Store. And remember, what comes to mind when someone mentions your name? That is your brand. So until next Wednesday, this has been Hump Day Hangover. Ciao.